The biggest week in gaming has come and gone, and now we have some time to settle down and take in all of the announcements, surprises, and flops of the 2019 edition of E3. So what surprises did our major developers give us? On today's episode, we'll give our 2 cents on each conference because ultimately, E3 is all about the games. Which ones are coming out? Which ones will we not see for another decade? So on. It's our annual recap, next on Downloadable Content. Hello everyone, welcome to Downloadable Content. I am Brian, and with me we have Ron.
Hey everyone.
We have Ronny.
Hello.
We have Shanna.
Hey.
And because twice is nice, Carlos is back for his second shot. Welcome back.
Hello.
Yes, it's going to be talking about E3 now that it's over. All of the major announcements from this week has come and gone. We have time to digest it and see what comes out, because we got a lot thrown at us. But before we dive into this year's recap, just want to remind everyone that every single episode of Downloadable Content can be found on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, and Google Play Music, as well as our website, dlcpodcast.com. You can check out upcoming recordings. Let us know if you want to be in on an episode. Give us feedback. It's all there for you, dlcpodcast.com. All the different ways to get downloadable content into your ears. So, all right, ladies and jelly spoons, we have a lot to talk about here. We get the announcements before the main event, and then the main event happens, and then we get everyone's opinions, and the thing that EA sort of started on a bit of an odd note. Before we dive into the conferences, the quote-unquote massive leak by Bandai Namco, in which we got an announcement about Ni no Kuni. And I was very excited about that, because, hey, Ni no Kuni's coming to PC! And I'm like, who didn't see that coming a mile away? Because the second game is out on PC. But the first game is getting a remaster, and it only reminded me that, oh yeah, that's right, I'm halfway through Ni no Kuni 1 on PS3. I should probably finish that.
I'm just glad it's coming to the Switch.
Yes, it is. Because
I wish the remastered was coming to the Switch, because I can't believe it's too powerful for the Switch, but, whatever.
But we are going to be... I was talking about that on Facebook, and one of my friends was like, yeah, I don't think that was a security breach. I think that was Bandai Namco trying to steal everyone's thunder before E3. And I'm like, maybe. You never know. I have no idea. But
it easily could have gotten lost in all the other E3 announcements. So if they did do it on purpose, it was kind of a smart idea.
Yep.
So normally what we do with our E3 recaps, if you've listened to these before, we tend to go in conference order, but we'll go a little bit out of order here because EA was the first major developer to go, and I really don't want to get my blood pressure up right off the bat talking about EA. So we'll put that off to the side for now and start off with Microsoft. And there was a lot of new announcements as I was checking my social media from time to time. There was a new console that was actually announced, Project Scarlet.
Yep.
Which, when I took a look at that, I'm like, oh, it has 8 million. It's going to be capable of 8 million P graphics and have 3 billion gigs of RAM. And I'm just like, so this is a PC.
It's been a PC for a while.
I know. It has.
We knew it was going that way, though.
But here's the thing. That's like saying that an Apple computer and a Windows computer are both PC. Well, they are, but they don't run the same things. Like, just because Microsoft is putting out a PC, still does, as long as they still have their own things that are unique to it, it doesn't matter if it's just a PC they put out.
And they also, in showing off this Xbox Scarlet, they showed a Halo. They showed Halo Infinite, which, yes, that's nothing there. It's basically like Nintendo doing launching with a Mario title. Master Chief is Microsoft's mascot per se, for better or for worse. But the specifications on the Scarlet were interesting, and they said they would be able to do 8K resolution and 120 FPS, which got me thinking. I'm like, okay, we're at 4K now, and just knowing how long it's taken to get 4K adopted into mainstream and actually be not as cost prohibitive anymore, I get the feeling that the Xbox, this Scarlet, will be initially out of reach for a lot of people. That's just a personal preference, personal feeling.
Well, the thing too is that based on what has been rumored for Sony's next console, which, let's be real, they're calling it the PS5. Even though they say they're not, they're going to be calling it the PS5. That's also supposedly going to be able to do 8K, like 120 FPS. So we'll need to see exactly how exactly they're going to be doing it, because they're both Sony and Microsoft are making some pretty weird claims, and we've seen Sony back up their claims. We haven't seen Microsoft do that with the Scarlet just yet.
So Microsoft, they'll have the PS5 with 8K and the and the Xbox with 8K, and then we'll have the Switch 2 with 3 screens and 8 control buttons. You don't need more than 8 buttons. That's all you need.
The Switch will just be a VR system. That's what it's moving to. Everything will be VR.
God, please no, we're still not there yet. We're still not there yet, guys.
You'll get a treadmill that you run on in order to run in games.
Don't make us sweat.
Nintendo's doing the best they can to make us the healthiest gamers we can be. They got us out of the house with Pokemon Go. I know that's another company, and now they have us doing Pokemon Sleep to make sure we get our good 8 hours in. What are they going to do next? We're going to have a Pokemon cooking game. Gonna teach us how to eat healthy.
Yep, it's going to be Pokemon Mama.
Yeah.
Well, they are adding a sheep Pokemon into the game, which I guess we'll talk about later. So you get some mutton out of that.
Yeah, but
I know there was one thing you were excited about coming out of the Microsoft conference, Brian. More information on the sequel to one of your favorite games of all time.
Yeah, more gameplay trailer for Ori and Will of the Wisps.
That's a great game.
That Ori and the Blind Forest is just so good, and I was looking forward to having the sequel out this year, but information came out that it's got pushed back to February 2020, which was a common theme overall for this year's E3. Early 2020 looks to be so front-loaded.
It's not just 2020.
September this year is super loaded.
Yeah, like I believe it and the last count of my memory serves, there was 12 games. They were coming out literally within 2 weeks of each other in mid-September.
Yeah, Dragon Quest, Link's Awakening, Daemon X Machina. I didn't write all the release dates down, but I know I saw at least 10, if not more.
Yeah.
That are all in that time in September.
Borderlands 3.
It's definitely surprising to have that much come out well before the holidays. I found that the most interesting, how many of these developers are actually pushing for September for a lot of this stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if some stuff gets pushed.
A lot of it seemed to be stuff for the Switch, and that's a little problematic because it seems like they're going to be competing with themselves all over the frickin' place.
I feel
putting
like
everything out.
I feel like the reason why they're going for before, if it's for the Switch specifically, it's because they're aiming for a particular date to avoid. They don't want to go anywhere near November because they know what November, December are going to be. They don't want to touch any of that.
Well, it's Borderlands 3 is actually coming out in September too, so Switch wasn't the only one that's putting up. And I know that that I'm actually excited for that game. I was really happy that they announced. Actually, I already played it, but the DLC for Borderlands 2 to tie the two stories together, I thought that was pretty cool.
I definitely
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I definitely feel like there's a lot going on in March too. I felt like I saw a lot of March 2020 release dates.
Yep. Animal Crossing.
A certain Square Enix game.
I wonder what you're talking about.
I don't know.
Shanna's going to explode. It's not Kingdom Hearts 4. No, that'll be after.
Yeah, we'll get to Square in a little bit.
I was gonna say we should probably stick to Microsoft because we're never gonna get anywhere if we continue at this rate.
So
you know how we do.
Yeah, Ronny steering us back onto the train here
for the first time ever.
I know. So let's see what other things of note.
Cyberpunk.
Yep, Keanu Reeves is the new Norman Reedus.
That looked surprisingly good.
Yeah, it did.
Cyberpunk 2077.
After Microsoft did the press conference and stuff, and CD Projekt Red started having people come behind doors for a closed offhands demo.
Mm-hmm.
There people came out of it feeling a little off kilter with Cyberpunk because I guess the demo they showed for this year about the behind closed doors ones is vastly different and a lot slower pace than the one we saw last year.
Yeah,
with the 30-minute walkthrough and everything like that. Where they gave you the appearance of a lot more options and things like that. I guess this walkthrough was not as well received.
Okay.
So people are not necessarily sure on what that's gonna be like, because I guess they took a lot slower pace. They had you go on a slower mission for this private walkthrough for this year compared to last year, where they gave you the appearance of more things to do and more options. Yes, Keanu being you're an ally of some kind is interesting.
People got that's one thing that to me is kind of ridiculous. Is don't get me wrong, I like Keanu Reeves, but having a big celebrity in a game doesn't make the game better. It just doesn't. It doesn't make the game worse, but I'm not gonna get super excited that Keanu Reeves is in the game. That tells me nothing about how good the game is gonna be.
For me, I think it's more of, it's the same developer that did Witcher 3, and Witcher 3 was a massively awesome game. So I'm expecting kind of the same kind of feeling with this one, just because I know how they take a lot of time to be very meticulous about how they do storyline, about how they kind of just add in a lot of kind of side quests and things to do. So I think it'll be interesting.
One thing I think also is, obviously there's this new trend, which is a topic in and of itself, of celebrities in video games. And I think the thing that works with Keanu, though, is that he kind of comes from that place already. So you have him in movies like Johnny Mnemonic and obviously The Matrix. He's done this sort of cyberpunk going into the Matrix, going into the system sort of thing before. So he's like a reliable narrator, so to speak, to be entering into this realm and to be doing this game. So I think in a way, maybe that's why it generated so much excitement, is because it's not just having a celebrity visage in the game. It's one who's like, okay, this is freaking Neo. Like, this totally makes sense that he's here.
I think it's also a thing too that the John Wick movies have been very well received in the U.S. at least. I'm not sure how they do in terms of overseas sales. But this is a movie series that has a very weird beginning, but is so beloved for being this like B-tier flick of just like relentless action and stupid weird world that's built in. But people just love it because it's basically Keanu being Keanu for like an hour and a half. And to your point of like the actors being more involved in game production and game movies and things like that, well, that's just due to also the fact that the motion capturing that a lot of studios love to do and the face capturing for proper facial gestures and like movements of like emotions, it gets to a point where like it's hard to map those emotions and those facial twitches and things like that onto a different person's face and have it look authentic, which is why they just use that actor's face instead, or that actress's face instead.
That makes sense. But of course, visual appeal of having a familiar face also helps, just like it helps with any blockbuster movie.
Of course.
But yes, that Cyberpunk did get a lot of chatter, a lot of buzz. Microsoft had plenty more to go, though.
Yes, they did have quite a bit more to go. I wanted to bring up the obviously the big announcement from Microsoft, the one all of us have been waiting for, and that was the announcement that they're bringing that Phantasy Star Online 2 is coming to America after many years of waiting. The big announcement for all of them.
Not just many years, 7 years.
I know.
This was fucking PS like 3 launch era when this was announced and be like, this is going to be coming to North America soon. Soon being 7 years later. Here's the thing. It is still actively played with a healthy user base in Japan, so it's not like they're bringing a dead game over. I know that. I'm amused that this game took this long to come over, and I saw it and I told my friends about it, and they both kind of gave the reaction of like, the old lady from the Titanic, who's like, it's been 84 years.
There's no reason it took this long. There isn't. And here's the funny part. So people have in America have played Phantasy Star Online 2 because you can set it up for it with English from fan patches. And it has been estimated by how many people from America have used the program to get in that way, that Phantasy Star Online 2 from unpaying subscribers in America has more players than a lot of the smaller MMOs that are actually over here. So this is actually a relatively big deal.
I know.
I think that coming out is why they went, well, you want to know what? We have all these people who aren't paying us. We may as well just have them pay us.
Yeah, I know. It's just like so long. Just why? I get why, and I just
There's no reason it should have taken this long, but
there's no reason. There is literally no reason. There's just free money sitting in North America for you, and you decide to not to translate it for 7 years. What the hell? Come on.
The best time to release Phantasy Star Online 2 would have been 7 years ago. The second best time is today.
I would argue the second best time would have been 6 years ago. But
but I mean, it's today is better than a year from now or 3 years.
Yes, I know. I'm just being a smartass because I can.
You're very good at being pedantic.
Nothing new there.
Nothing new there. Although, I will say this. When I saw that announcement for Phantasy Star Online 2, I went, oh, so they took the Dragon Quest approach.
What? Wait a bunch of years to try to get the money out of us? Leave us waiting?
Yeah, waiting.
They-
Dragon
Microsoft
Quest 4, 5, and 6 eventually seeing a DS release.
Microsoft actually had a surprising amount of RPGs in their lineup. Because, I mean, we got Phantasy Star Online 2. We had the announcement for RPG Time, The Legend of Wright, which looks to be like Mario, the Paper Mario games taken to 11, where you're actually in a sketchbook.
I feel I feel like this is like the drawing book of a kid in class who's just like trying to entertain himself and not pay attention to the lesson being taught. So he makes up this like game world basically, and is just going full like a 10-year-old who's been watching too much anime and Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's fucking rad. That's awesome. I want to play that
Right now.
Put it in my hand right now, and I will exchange it for funds. We also had the Tales of Arise, which, despite me being a hardcore RPG gamer who plays everything, I have never played a single Tales of game, but I know a lot of people are going to be excited about that.
Same. I'm in that same boat. I've never played a Tales game.
I haven't either, actually.
It's one of those game series that in general goes very anime in terms of like the character designs, the storylines, the action, the character development. It's all like very anime, and I don't mean that as like an offense, but as a slight against the game. It's just, it is a style that not everyone will enjoy.
So are the Tales of series, from what I can tell, because nobody here's played, is this kind of like Ohio, where we all know it's a place, but no one's ever been there, so we can't verify it really exists? Is that what the Tales of games are?
The Ohio of video games.
It kind of is. It's like everyone's like, oh, Tales of, like there's Tales of games. It's like everyone knows what that is, and it's just like, but we don't touch it because it's too anime in some cases.
I'm a huge anime fan. You'd think it would be up my alley. I've just never had the opportunity. I have too many things on my list already.
The backlog is massive.
Which, speaking of games that are on my backlog, did you guys see 12 Minutes?
No, didn't see that one.
It was Microsoft, right?
Yep, that was from the Microsoft conference. It shows a police officer breaks into a guy's house accusing his wife of murder, and the guy ends up getting killed during it, and then he wakes up 12 minutes before that, and it's Groundhog Day, basically, where he keeps reliving this 12 minutes as he tries to discover what happened. Did his wife really commit a murder, and try to get both of them out safely?
What makes it interesting is that it takes place entirely within the perspective of like a top-down view of the guy's apartment. Almost entirely, there's like the main living area. Some scenes will occur in the bedroom, other scenes will occur in the bathroom. It looks like the vast majority of it took place in this like
It's one house,
studio size, studio size kitchen living room area.
The concept.
It was very interesting.
This got some attention. A collaboration between George R.R. Martin and I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation of this.
From Software.
Well, that's the studio.
I helped you with the pronunciation.
That's the studio.
I think the director's name, which is
another Miyazaki, who did Dark Souls, and I saw that and I went, "Oh God, you're gonna have Game of Thrones combined with the developer for Dark Souls. This is going to make Nintendo hard look easy."
Would you like me to say his name for you?
Go ahead.
Hidetaka Miyazaki.
There you go. Well done. Thank you.
Effortless.
This is the thing though, is that all they showed was just like an announcement trailer, which was actually leaked a couple days beforehand. It's just like, okay, this Elden Ring is whatever, but as we've seen with how Game of Thrones ended, the writing can be fantastic up to a certain point, and then you gotta deliver on the goddamn story and action and climax of it.
You can't really blame Martin for that, other than from not finishing his goddamn books by then.
That's why I'm blaming him, because I can understand wanting to, from a writer's perspective, I can understand wanting to make sure that the show you're producing or is being produced for you with your input is authentic enough and fits the general beats and story tones that you're looking to convey in your novel. That doesn't mean you can't continue to do your goddamn original job in the first place, and what made you have these books become a TV show in the first place.
I'm just saying, you can't really blame him for an ending that wasn't him.
So I'll chime in really quick, because we'll get off topic if we keep talking about George R.R. Martin not doing what he's supposed to. But
yeah,
the gist of it is that the problem is that he's like a cultivator, right? So you plant seeds, and you grow your seeds, and you grow your garden, and you grow it, and you grow it, and you grow it. The problem is you have to kind of weed the garden at some point. Unfortunately, Martin didn't do that, and so what happened as he was writing the books is he made our garden got too overgrown, and he has no way of bringing those characters back to where they need to be to close out the story. He kind of just let it grow out, and then didn't kind of tailor it back to where it needs to go. So rather than finishing the story in 4 books, it's now 5 books and 6 books and 7 books. I don't think in his lifetime, he's going to be able to finish those stories. That's my personal opinion. But anyway,
he's a pantser. He creates an interesting world and set of characters. He places them in the world, and then what they do is what they do, and that can lead to very, very strong characters and a natural feel to it. But it also means that you can have a lot of extraneous threads that will never be tied up, because the story's not leading for them to be tied up, which means in the end it can feel quite unfulfilling.
Like a jumbled ball of yarn that is never going anywhere.
But what he needs to stop doing is having ADD and doing all these other side projects and actually work on finishing his books.
And talking about those side projects, Elden Ring!
Yes, the Elden Ring.
Well done.
Back on top!
Well done. Here he is.
All we got was the announcement trailer. We didn't really get like any sort of like cinematic footage or gameplay footage. We just got like a splash of some Dark Souls-y night.
Yeah, that certainly looked like Dark Souls. I'm looking forward to Dark Souls 4.
Basically, is what it seems like.
And then there were a couple of announcements where I had to ask, what century was it? What year is it?
Battletoads
and Microsoft Flight Simulator.
To be fair, okay. Yes, Microsoft Flight Simulator, whatever. It is actually a beloved game by that community, and they're just lapping it up. So I'm glad.
Is it really a comeback? It's always been here? Because has that ever really gone away? They've released new versions of it, haven't they?
I feel like the last one was 2013 or 2014, so it's been a few years.
I'll look that up for you, but yeah, I saw those 2 announcements, and I'm just like, ooh, is it going to run on Windows 95 again?
2014 was the last one.
Yes, it's been 5 years. That's a long enough time.
I know. I'm just saying, people are talking like it's from, we haven't seen one since 92, and I'm like, it never went away. You just haven't played it since 92.
Alright, so can someone correct me on this? What game is it that had the goddamn Lego Ferrari
Forza?
On stage? Forza? Was it Forza again?
It was Forza.
Yeah, they had a Lego Ferrari on stage, for those who didn't know. Or no, what was it? It was a... Oh, I forgot they had some sort of Lego racing car on stage that took 500,000 bricks to make. And it looked like a goddamn... It looked really fucking detailed.
Yeah, so there's some kind of DLC, I guess, for Forza 4 that includes Legos, so they kind of included that in there.
Yeah,
that's kind of hilarious.
That's exactly what it is. It's
Speaking about Legos.
Forza Horizon 4 is getting a Lego Speed Champions expansion.
Speaking about Legos, we have Minecraft Dungeons.
Isn't this also where they announced the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga?
Yes.
All right, yeah, that also applies here too. Lego games are always cute and funny, like that. That's fine. That's meant for the kids. Obviously, I'm fine with it existing. It's just not for the adult audience.
I disagree. I'll play the heck out of a Lego game.
Yeah,
I
I
was gonna
freaking
say-
love them.
The Lego games are supposed to be super quality.
They're just fun for what they are, and they tend to on top of just being a game where you build things with Legos and all that, they tend to parody whatever source material they're taking from. So I was all about Lego Star Wars. I played the heck out of that, and it's fun because they'll do little joke things with it. Lego Batman's another example where every time there's a cutscene, Robin's doing something stupid or like falling off of his like bike or whatever.
Pretty much.
So they poke a little fun at the source material. So I've always liked them for that reason.
Yep. So yeah, Minecraft Dungeon, blocky Diablo.
Okay.
Yeah, see any of that?
That's okay. I'll give you that. I will
And-
give
and-
you that.
And yet somehow blocky Diablo is better than mobile Diablo.
Yes, but that's fine. Like, I don't know. Like, everybody thought when they bought Minecraft that they were gonna milk it dry and they were gonna go to Minecraft 2 and Minecraft 3, and I was like, no, I think they're gonna do other things with the IP, and this is the kind of thing I thought they were gonna do. I wasn't gonna call Diablo, but this is not surprising.
Yeah.
It's beloved, and it has a very, very not detailed, but a very, very iconic style. Like, you can see it, and you know that's Minecraft.
And that fan base is rabid for anything Minecraft related, so I imagine they'll probably eat this up.
Yeah, so
Nom, nom.
heck, if it's good, maybe we'll eat it up. Like, I'm fine with a blocky Diablo if it's a good game.
There was also they showed off a bunch of indie games, and they also like just some of the names that got my attention. Totally Accurate Battle Simulator. I love when indie devs do shit like this.
It's been on PC for a while, I feel.
Like,
Might be a
like-
release.
there's a game that I play that it is a hilarious parody of Oregon Trail called Super Amazing Wagon Adventure. And it's
I'll stick with Oregon Trail, thank you.
yeah. And I didn't actually catch the full details on this, but there was some news about an update or to the subscription service to Xbox Game Pass.
So they're promoting their Xbox Game Pass thing, and they're updating their game library for it. The thing that they were doing was, if you subscribe between them announcing it and I want to say till Monday, basically. So, like, as of this recording, it'll probably be way past the date. That you could subscribe for $1 and get access to, like, pretty much the entire Game Pass library. And then this means that you also get access to it on your PC, which means some of these games are now available on PC. One of those games being Metro Exodus.
$10 a month doesn't sound particularly egregious, but it just slightly related. Just we are now in an era where we have subscription services for all of our media, to the point now where the cost of having all these subscription services outweigh the cost of actually having a cable subscription. So
There's one game we haven't touched on that was in the Microsoft conference that I definitely want to mention, and that is Psychonauts 2.
Oh, that's gonna be great. I love the first.
It's also true, that Microsoft acquired Double Fine.
they bought Double
Right.
Fine. I was just like, oh, I did not see that one coming.
Which is probably a good thing, because with all the issues Double Fine has had on the business end, even though they make amazing games, having another company who can kind of do the business end of it for them so they can just produce the games, probably a good choice.
We had Gears 5 as well. with some more like gameplay. No, not gameplay, but like we saw a 3-man survival horror mode. I feel like they showed some additional gameplay as well, but I can't remember.
All I'm gonna say is microtransaction. Yeesh.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, Gears 5 next.
I think after Gears 5, that's when they led into the Scarlet talk into Halo Infinite. So then I think that's pretty much it for Microsoft.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, as far as I can tell, like Microsoft had a conference, but we have a bunch of conferences. In fact, I think there was one that was before Microsoft that we kind of skipped over. Oh yeah, EA. How are they still a thing?
Yeah, I'm just gonna mute my mic for this one because otherwise you're just gonna get 15 minutes of expletives.
What are you talking about? All EA had was like literally 90 minutes of sports games, and then
it was only an hour of sports games.
Are you sure about that? Are you sure?
They had a half an hour of FIFA and a half an hour of Madden.
Okay.
Were there any other sports games they had?
They had basketball.
Well. They had 30 minutes of FIFA, maybe 20 minutes of Madden, and then about 10 minutes of
Yeah, but
they had a 3-hour conference, and over an hour of it was 2 games.
And, like,
2 games that I don't know how you do an hour of those 2 games unless you have somebody standing up there just listing names for the roster updates.
They talked about the eyebrow threading that you can now do on the team character.
Seriously?
No, I'm just kidding. I don't really know.
I would not be surprised. I skipped them because I don't play sports games. I'm sorry to all the fans out there. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying they're not for me. But I am saying that last year, at the beginning of this press conference, my wife said, how are they still a company? And that is just as valid this year as it was for last year.
You want to know how they're still a company? Because the rest of the fucking world loves FIFA. That's how they're still a fucking company.
That is true.
They occasionally give us a Star Wars game. Jedi Fallen Order, for example.
Literally, the only things worth talking about from a non-sports perspective was Jedi Fallen Order and Apex Legends. And Apex Legends is just in such a very weird state right now because Respawn, the people who made Apex Legends and had it be a major fucking success, are very slow to release things, and the things they're releasing are not enough to warrant a buy-in for their like battle pass or whatever. So. And they can't do more because they're working on some other video game that's coming out this year too. I don't remember what the freaking game is, and they're also doing something else. They have a lot of people working on something. They don't know what. Is Respawn doing Jedi Fallen Order, or am I mistaken?
No, EA is doing Jedi Fallen Order.
EA's publishing.
Yeah, that was what they opened with.
But who's the developer? Is Respawn doing Jedi Fallen Order? I don't remember.
Oh,
I'm looking it up now. I don't remember.
That's how forgettable EA's conference was, people.
Developed by Respawn Entertainment.
Yeah, so the same guys who did Apex Legends are developing Jedi Fallen Order. That's probably why Apex Legends is not having a very fast update cycle, because they've probably did what BioWare did and shunted 3/4 of his workforce over to Respawn to get that game to work
Shanna, you were going to say something?
Yeah.
It wasn't anything that was that big of a deal. It was just about FIFA. Oh. And I was just going to mention that, I happen to watch the PlayStation channel on YouTube that's based out of the UK, and they always reference FIFA. So you're right. I think on that end, it's just got an international base, but obviously you don't have a whole heck of a lot of soccer fans here, so it doesn't have quite the impact here.
And that's why they have Madden for America, and then they have FIFA for the rest of the world.
Exactly.
And those are the 2 reasons that EA has not just enough money to exist, but enough money to buy up all the companies we love and then destroy them.
Yeah, just
buy their souls and turn them into heartless machines.
Hey, Brian, you want to know what we should do? We should have a podcast on an EA retrospective on how they went from a beloved company that supported creators' rights, and then have memorials for all of the companies that they destroyed along the way.
You might have Brian in rant mode that entire episode.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
I'm going to take that episode, and then once it airs, I'm going to burn it.
But you'll at least be able to say that you did it.
I'll be able to burn it in effigy. But
can I just jump on to talk about The Sims for that episode and just gush about how much I love The Sims and how disgustingly involved I got in creating love stories and tragic tales among little computer people?
I mean, welcome to the early 2000s for like any like mid-teen, early 20s person that just did the exact same thing.
Yeah,
essentially, yes.
Shanna, the romantic sap.
But I think that's it for EA. Can we just move off of EA now, please?
I think we've done all we can do.
EA happened. The end.
Next conference we have is Bethesda with actual games this year.
Maybe.
I didn't watch the first half of Bethesda. Was it basically just them apologizing for Fallout 76?
Fallout 76 now with NPCs
and BR. And I guess the BR is actually not shit.
I'm more excited about the NPCs, to be honest.
I will blame you.
Here's the funny bit. Okay, another friend of mine was watching the Bethesda conference as it was going on, and he messaged me and he's like, they are raucously cheering for NPCs. The bar has been set so low for AAA devs that the addition of NPCs has resulted in raucous cheering.
Listen, Bethesda also had some very, like, we joke a lot about audiences and the live audience being paid off. There was definitely a few people in that audience that were definitely paid off. There was some guy that was like wooing after anything even notable out of the Bethesda conference.
I think you underestimate how diehard some fans can be even after they've been burned.
I don't. I can't believe with how Bethesda's had like its last 2 years. Like the past 2 years for Bethesda have not been the greatest.
I have friends who would still woo for Bethesda right now, what they were. It's going to take another 5 or 6 years of them being complete crap to actually shake their belief, if ever.
Like, other than Fallout 76, which I spent like the first 15 minutes on, I want to say. What was the rest of it? I know they had Doom Eternal.
Doom Eternal, Ghostwire Tokyo, Wolfenstein Youngblood, and the Commander Keen mobile game were the ones that I remember.
Okay, so Commander Keen was cute. It's obviously, I don't think it's meant for us. I think it's meant for the younger, the
yeah, and it's nice to see it back.
It's cute. It's going to encourage. It might encourage some very raucous microtransaction bullshit.
Ghostwire Tokyo was pretty. Like, I watched that, and if somebody had told me that was a movie trailer and not a video game trailer, I would have believed them.
Oh yeah, Ghostwire Tokyo, that looked interesting. Deathloop was also announced. Thanks, Carlos. That looked interesting too. More so from the idea behind the game itself, that you're Groundhog Daying through this thing, and the only way to get out of it is to kill the other person who's Groundhog Daying.
So we have Microsoft that had 12 minutes of Groundhog Day games, and we have this that had a Groundhog Day, and then we have EA that just repeats the same thing every year. So 3 of them so far are Groundhog Day.
So is Bill Murray going to show up at one of these press conferences?
Better.
Because, as my friend was talking about how, the raucous cheering for NPCs, I said, so is basically the Bethesda conference just, here's Fallout, here's the Elder Scrolls, and the end?
Can we talk about how much energy the director for Ghostwire had when she was out on stage?
yes, Brian, you may have seen this be a meme, but she was she the creative director or was she the general director of the game? I don't remember.
I believe she was the general director of the game, but I could be wrong. I'm looking up right now.
But yes, I did see the meme because the memes were instant.
Again, and I think it's meant to be more so like a wholesome, cute meme because this is a person who clearly loves what they're doing and they're very excited for it, and I think that's a refreshing thing to see out of a developer.
Yep.
Who took that nervous bundle of energy you have as you're like sitting backstage and be like, oh god, I'm gonna be talking about a game, what I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. Instead of shutting down, she decided to show it, and I think that's a refreshing thing to see. Because we've had conferences before where developers have gone on stage and like almost gone catatonic on stage talking about their game.
She is the creative director. Mikami is still the general director.
Yeah, so she was the one that helped. So she's the one that helped like design the aesthetic and the feel of the game and how it looks and how it's presented to us. Which this was for Livewire, right, or the Tokyo Wire, whatever the
Ghostwire. Ghostwire Tokyo. But from what I understand, the two of them are working very closely together, so it's more of a collaboration.
That sounds good. Having that nervous bundle of energy I am all for any developer or any publisher who goes on stage like that and has the balls for it. Like, all respect to you. Taking that ball of nervous energy and just expressing it is a good way to do it because it frees you up physically and it makes you feel like you have more room to maneuver, which means you have more room and more confidence to talk about things.
Absolutely. I mean, we'll talk later about Naoki Yoshida and Final Fantasy XIV once we get to Square.
But I do have to say, that is one of my favorite things about E3 every year is watching the presentations and watching the developers come out, because they usually are either like, and it's understandable that they're super nervous. They're on an international stage here representing their game. I mean, I would not want to be in their shoes. That's really nerve-wracking.
I mean, it is basically like the NBA draft or the NFL draft of video games. It's like,
absolutely,
this is where you go to show your game. This is where you're going to show this baby you've been working on for months or years, or in some cases a decade, and you're showing it to the public for the first time, and that's nerve-wracking for anyone, much less.
And let's be honest. Let's be honest here. Most game developers, or at least many game developers, are rather introverted types. That's part of one of the things that appeals to actually programming video games, working on them. So going out on stage in front of a massive load of people is not going to be the most natural thing for some of these people.
Right. But the funny thing is, I notice you either have one of two. You have the one where it's like you're rooting for them because you can tell they're nervous, or you do have the ones who come out the gate and who are just like explosive. And one that comes to mind, just going back to EA, I think he actually was just a presenter, but the guy who was interviewing the two developers from Jedi Fallen, he was just like, yeah, Jedis. I mean, he was so excited.
It's good to have people that are like, that's the thing. Like, if I could give one piece of advice to all of the video game companies, I don't care if it's the director. If the director is too chill, go grab one of the other people who work in the game. Put somebody in front of a camera who loves what they're doing and is excited and wants you to know that, oh my god, you need to see the things in this game. It's great.
But I was just dying because I was watching the chat roll and all these people were like, why is he yelling so much? Stop yelling. That, and then they were going off about the fact that one of the developers, his shoes was untied. One of his shoes was untied, so they're like, somebody tie his shoe. Somebody tell him his shoe's untied. I'm like, what is wrong with these people?
I think to kind of back up the idea of that, Ronnie, is if you have someone that's excitable and someone that's balanced, that's also a good like
pairing them up. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Like, and we kind of saw that with Square Enix when they talked about a certain game.
Well, we'll get there. But Let's see. What have we not talked about for Bethesda yet? Wolfenstein Youngblood.
AKA two girls being badasses and killing Nazis in like a alternate universe. Europe.
AKA two Blazkowiczes for the price of one, right?
Well, technically three, because they're looking to go find where their father went, because that daddy went off to Europe for some reason and it hasn't come back yet.
Well, okay, but we haven't seen him yet, so we don't actually know if he's going to be playable or if he's going to show up. But either way, we got two Blazkowiczes at least.
Which that was announced originally last year, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
I thought I was like, I think I saw this before.
We knew it was going to be a thing because they announced it saying that we have some DLC planned for New Empire, whatever the second game was. I forget its name. But then we are announcing Youngblood, and we'll have more next year, which was now this year.
I don't play first-person shooter games, so I'm never going to touch it. But I will say, like, it looked entertaining. I know there's a lot of people who are going to enjoy it, so I'm glad it's there. I'm glad to see a modern renaissance for Wolfenstein, because you want to know what? It's something different than all the other first-person shooters that we've gotten 15 different variations of.
I think it has a special place in a lot of PC gamers' hearts as well. I mean, I know I was a big Wolfenstein fan back in the day, so it seems like it's one of those games that could very easily make a comeback and not feel like retread. I don't know what it is, just something about that game feels very classic.
I mean, are we in the 90s again? Because we're talking about an E3 with Wolfenstein and Doom.
Along with Battletoads and Microsoft Flight Simulator. But, you know. Nostalgia's big business, Ronnie. Didn't you know that?
I was gonna say we're talking about Seiken Densetsu 3, where they tell us we're gonna get it, and we still don't believe them.
I was gonna say this is our E3 1996 recap, don't you know?
So is that it for Bethesda?
They had a streaming service that they're putting out, Orion. That was pretty much the last thing.
I actually don't really have any. Does anybody remember anything about that? Because I don't remember a single thing about that.
The claim they're making is if you use their streaming software, how they encode it and how it's transferred, it's ended up being about, I think they said up to 20% smaller files being transferred to the server, which basically means the TLDR version is, if it works properly, you can stream better video and audio while still using the same data compression wavelength.
Well, I suppose we'll have to see how well it stacks up against the Stadia, which is the next conference we're talking about.
Ronnie with the segues here.
And for reference, for those who don't know what the Stadia is, because some people might be in the dark, Stadia is a service being provided by Google that's launching later this year. I forget the exact
November.
date. Thank you. And the idea basically being that if you subscribe to Stadia, because it's a subscription-based service, you can stream a bunch of games to Chrome. And you can
I was
play
actually going to say, statistically, it probably was coming out in mid-September, because that's where everything's coming out.
But you can stream this game to Chrome, and it will play on Chrome. And instead of it being based on whatever hardware that your computer is on currently, it is a cloud-based game, and Google basically has giant server farms that it is going to be running these games for you.
Which is one huge benefit for Stadia over the other streaming platforms that are being set up, and that's Google already has server farms within very short distances from pretty much everyone in the frickin' world. So you're going to have far lower latency with Stadia than the other ones if they do it right.
And that's always been the sticker with a lot of these streaming services is the latency. Like, if you're playing an RPG or a turn-based RPG or what have you, like, who gives a flying fuck about latency? You just sit there and think for how long you want before the action actually goes through. But they're saying that their latency is so low that you can start playing like Destiny 2 and a bunch of other FPS games on Stadia day one, and have the latency not be a large enough thing to where it would affect gameplay.
And they've said,
hard sell.
what, you need 10 megabytes per second download to be able to manage it, which is not much.
I mean, you say that, but I'm more so concerned with the upload speed, because let's be honest, the internet in the US is not nearly as good as it is in most of the other developed first world countries.
There's huge issues with this, but with many places. But here's the thing. If this works and this becomes big, Google is one of the few companies that has enough power to apply pressure to the telecom companies to actually start getting high quality internet in places that don't have it, because it'll be affecting their sales.
True.
I feel like this game could actually improve the internet across at least America, if not elsewhere.
It should be known that it's not entirely due to telecoms. Yes, a large portion of it is Comcast and Verizon and
there's a lot.
There's
a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of them that are don't want to do it, but some is also because they don't want to spend the money on it because they're cheap bastards. But some is also due to the fact that red tape of the legal area of where they want to put in the fiber lines or what have you for like the local district is not easy. Memory serves, when Google Fiber was being installed in some, I want to say Kansas City, I think it was, or some random Midwestern town
where the whole place got fucked up.
Yeah,
I remember that whole thing.
Yeah, where like it took them 2 years. They wanted it to be installed in a year. It took them nearly 3, and because
they were experimenting with new ways of doing it, and the new way they were doing it was a complete shit show.
Yeah, and also because that they first had to get permission and go through a bunch of legal red tape to even do the groundwork and digging. Then they had to get another permission to dig up what they fucked up and then put in the actual stuff that they had actually worked.
And then they eventually just canceled it altogether. They never actually finished. They never actually got them on. They ended up having to pay the city to fix all the roads and all the streets.
Yeah.
For doing it. But I mean, here's the thing. At the very least, we can say, regardless of all the issues, whether it's coming from local governments, the federal government, whether it's coming from companies, having one of the largest companies in the world pushing to make the internet better, even if it's just for their bottom line, is going to change things, at least on a small level.
Enlightened self-interest can be a wonderful thing sometimes.
Absolutely.
You and Ron brought up you mentioned the thing that I wanted to say was that it, like, I'm going to give a shout out to Sprites and Dice here. They wrote a really good summary of Google Stadia, and I love this idea in theory. But you guys brought up the fact that, okay, since this is not going to be hardware based, it's still going to be based on how good your internet speed is. And you've already touched upon the fact that, in this country, particularly, we do not have broadband access from coast to coast. There are still places where your only source of internet is through dial-up because the telecom companies have come to the conclusion that it's not worth their time and money to extend broadband into the more rural areas of the country. Also, a lot of companies still do data caps. So if you're going to be doing, if this is supposed to be, if this is supposed to be like the sort of the Netflix of games, you still need to not only have at least a decent internet speed, you also need to not be on some sort of internet plan where data caps are a thing, because I could very easily see some poor soul easily blowing through their data cap in a matter of hours.
Let's also keep in mind too, and also keep in mind too, like for some of those remote areas, for reference, like when we say remote areas, we mean like Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, some parts of Minnesota. Like, people where the general population of the state itself is maybe under 1 million people. Like, that's what we mean by remote. We're talking like literally miles and miles of farmland or cattle ranches or what have you. The flyover states of the U.S. Like, that's what we mean by remote.
You don't even have to talk about those, though. Like, let's put it this way. It has only been until recently that we finally got decent speeds on our broadband on Cape Cod, and we're not in the middle of nowhere. There are a lot of places that, even if they have broadband, the broadband is pretty freaking terrible, and the companies have no incentive to improve it.
And I agree with you, but like those, those places matter too. The point I was going to make was some of those places can't even get internet because they don't have the phone lines out there. They have to get their internet.
We are veering off topic, Carlos. You are absolutely right, and you can say that because you were also on the podcast with us.
I am, but I don't want to interrupt the wonderful conversation you guys are having.
Oh, it's okay. We're all jerks. Don't worry about it.
I don't think it's entirely off topic because internet speed is going to be basically whether Stadia lives or dies. In my opinion.
Well, hey, whether the Stadia is a success or failure, it did have a couple games during its conference. So why don't we talk about Baldur's Gate 3, which showcased during the Stadia event?
Did they actually show gameplay, or did they just show the release trailer again? Because I've seen the release trailer a couple times already.
Okay, that was the first. That was because Stadia was the first conference. That's where I saw the release trailer. Was it released? Was that trailer out before E3, or did it just show in more than one place?
I think it was shown. If memory serves, I think it was shown during Stadia. Then, like immediately after it got shown on Stadia, both Larian Studios and D&D, like the official Twitters for both those studios, retweeted the video.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because to clarify to the people here, we do typically do stuff in order, but Stadia was technically the first event, and we put it here because we I don't know, Brian, why did we put it here again?
It leads into PC gaming, which is also where which is also where we saw more of Baldur's Gate 2 or 3, I should say.
We got to see body horror mind flayers as a mind flayer takes over mutates someone's body into a new mind flayer. Which mind flayers, if you don't know and you don't follow D&D, are basically tiny Cthulhu. It was horrifying and great. I can't wait. It was terrifying. It really was.
It should be noted that we saw Baldur's Gate 3 again during the PC gaming show, but they had the developers on, or they had one of the developers on from Larry, and then they had one of the main story writers from D&D on that stage as well. Yep. And they talked a little bit more about Baldur's Gate 3 there. So,
I mean, Baldur's Gate 3's got a pretty good pedigree going on. I mean, it really helped birth the modern D&D video games.
It's also a thing too that Larian as a studio, we've seen, like, if there's one thing we know that they are good for, it's for making good, like, isometric, like, modern RPGs, thanks to Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2.
Also in the Stadia event, the Stadia conference, they talked about Guilt, which looks to be kind of an indie-ish horror adventure game that I am totally interested in playing. I would absolutely play it if it wasn't on the Stadia. Anybody else see that, or was it just me?
It may give you a reason to want Stadia.
And I think with Stadia, you still have to buy the game first before you can essentially stream it.
Is that how it works?
No, it isn't. It's a subscription service. I believe. I can look it up. I can look it up right now, but I'm pretty sure they announced it as the Stadia is a subscription service.
Okay. Well, while you look that up, I mean, just this going back to an earlier point that you were saying about if this takes off, this has the potential to not only improve internet, but also just make games more accessible. And that's the thing that I really, really like about it. I mean, a lot of this is theoretical because it actually hasn't even been... It's not released yet.
Okay, here's what it is. Stadia will have a monthly fee of about $10, and that gives you access to a library of games. There are other games that will be put on Stadia that will cost extra in addition to what you normally pay.
Okay.
From what it sounds like when a game is first released, it will cost money, and then after a set amount of time, it'll be added to the normal library. So,
okay.
to play a new release, they don't say this at the period of time, but let's say for 6 months, if you want to play it, you actually have to pay extra for it. But after 6 months, it just gets added to the normal library. That seems pretty reasonable to me for a way to do it.
We'll see how much. We'll see how much that quote unquote additional cost is when a new game comes out. I'm curious to see.
If it's $5 per game for like the first 6 months or first year of a game, that seems reasonable, I guess. Until we get to the point where you end up, unless you're trying to, assuming you go all in on Stadia, like having to pay $60 or $70 a month to play a bunch of new games on release every 3 weeks or so seems a little.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if you would have been paying $60 for each of those games normally, even considering trading the game back in, you would still be saving quite a bit of money just by doing it through Stadia.
I guess, but then
you're not owning it.
Yeah, that's the thing I was going to make, is that you're not owning the game,
which for some people really matters. That matters for me a huge whole heck of a lot. But I know, especially for a lot of younger people, that's less of a concern.
Yeah.
I don't know if they answered this or not during the conference. What happens to games that involve save data?
I don't know if they mentioned during the conference. I believe they were asked it earlier when the thing was first announced, and I believe they said that it saves in the cloud.
So it saves to your account basically. So as long as your account is
and you can bring it to any Chrome based thing that you go to.
All right. Well, that's something at least, I guess.
Like they showed they show off Doom Eternal during that conference.
I think they did.
They did.
They showed what was it? Doom playing on a phone.
Oh God! Just just think about trying to play Doom on the Stadia and your internet isn't god tier. Just
And Ron goes puking in the corner somewhere. So
did I see that Doom is actually opening up its horizons now, where you can actually play in heaven? I thought I read that.
No,
that would be hilarious.
I thought I read that somewhere. Maybe I'm going nuts, but they're like, oh yeah, like Doom's coming out and blah blah blah, and now you can play in heaven.
Okay.
Yeah, heaven is supposed to be involved in this next one. We're going to see the forces of light as well as the forces of darkness, and we're going to kill both of them because fuck that, man rules this world.
I'm not going nuts.
Okay, to be completely honest, I don't remember. They showed a lot of gameplay, and they didn't really talk about the story for Doom Eternal a ton, so I'm not entirely certain. Maybe you do end up going to heaven. I don't know. But I do know what they showed is basically you going to a space station, fucking shit up there, going to what's left of Mars, fucking up more shit there, then going to hell and fucking up shit there.
And then The Rock shows up and his eyes turn yellow and he was the bad guy all along. And Doom movie, anyone? We all just erase that from our conscious.
Yeah, sorry.
Bueller.
I forgot that was a thing.
Oh yeah, it was awful. Except for other than the 10 minutes where they made it look like you were playing Doom.
Yeah, let's also forget that Dr. McCoy from the new Star Trek was the hero.
Oh really? I must have missed that.
I'm pretty sure the actor who plays Dr. McCoy from the new Star Trek movies is the same guy who plays the Doom hero, basically from the Doom movie.
Didn't realize that.
I'm gonna look that up now. I'm almost certain
But yeah, so I mean, the Stadia could make a big. I mean, it could be the first time we really have a new quote unquote console that rivals the big three in freaking in console generations at this point. Like this is the first real contender we've had since Sega, and this could really change things. And the more information we get, the more it seems like they might actually be able to pull this off.
So Carl Urban, who has portrayed Dr. McCoy in the new Star Trek reboots, also did Reaper.
Xena, Warrior Princess.
That too. But he did play Reaper, which was AKA Doom Guy, in the Doom movie.
Oh, I've seen him in stuff. Okay.
He's not a bad actor.
I need to look at a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he's in a lot of stuff. It's just like 2005.
Oh, Eomer! He was in the Two Towers and Return of the King.
He's in Chronicles of Riddick also.
Oh yeah.
And he was
Let's
Judge
just have a
Dredd in the
podcast
Dredd
on this guy. We could have done that instead of EA. Nobody would have noticed.
The Carl Urban Worship Hour.
So,
the actor I've seen in stuff.
For the EA press conference, how about Carl Urban? What's he been up to?
To kind of swing us back on topic, now that my curiosity has been sated, was there anything else out of Stadia? I don't think there was.
Not really. The only things I remember, the only things that stuck out to me were Baldur's Gate 3 and Guilt, and that was it.
All right, so after Bethesda, we went to Friday morning, I believe it was. Was it Monday? No, whatever. Somewhere it was Monday or something. After Bethesda,
Time passed.
Time passed.
And then we got to the PC gaming show.
Yes, let's talk about the PC gaming show. We'll end the first half with this. So, this was a pretty packed conference. There were a lot of games that were talked about here.
I was gonna say one that is near and dear to my heart because what it is based on took up a large portion of my teenage was Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2.
My feet are kicking for this. I need to see more of this. I'm with you. I loved me some Bloodlines, so.
Mm-hmm.
This was the game where I said on Facebook that this was rubbing more salt in Telltale's wounds.
I have thousands of dollars of World of Darkness books sitting on my bookcase in my office right now that tell everyone that Bloodlines 2 is what I've been waiting for years.
Those who aren't aware, Bloodlines 2 is meant to be a spiritual. Is it an actual sequel or is it a spiritual sequel?
It is an actual sequel.
An actual sequel to Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, which came out on PC in 2002?
Yeah.
2004 is what I'm seeing here.
Okay, thank you. The general idea behind it is you become a vampire in the modern day setting, and now you must deal with the trials and tribulations of the various vampire courts, all while trying to remain existing.
Keeping up the Masquerade title drop.
Yes.
Ooh.
And it involves a bunch of people getting turned into vampires in a mass embrace where a bunch of people are all turned at once, which is against vampire law, and you escape while other vampires are hunting you down, and you have to figure out what happened to you and how you fit into this new world.
And the thing about it is that the original Bloodlines video game, PC game, it's kind of like a cult hit.
It was way ahead of its time.
It was very ahead of its time. Unfortunately, it was very buggy when it was released, but it was so beloved that there were so many fan patches that were made to fix it because the storyline was really good. I think the game had way more interactivity and ideas than a lot of games at the time did. Like, for example, this was a game that early on adopted having more than one way to approach the game and to finish the game. So depending on what race of vampire you were, you could either, you might be a brawler, you might go in and just beat a bunch of people up, but you might be more charismatic and be able to talk your way through situations. The thing I thought was always really cool was that you could play as a Nosferatu vampire, in which you literally have to play the entire game sort of in this stealthy incognito way, because you don't want people to see you because
you look like a freaking monster.
Because you look like a monster. So it was really cool because you could play that game literally 10 times over, and every time it was going to be a different thing.
There are so many different ways to go through it, and one thing that the game during its day had a lot of criticism for its bugs, but nothing but excellent things for its writing.
Right,
now,
exactly.
Yeah, now, right now, if you take a look compared to games today, it does feel dated in a lot of ways, but that writing was solid.
It was great, and you couldn't wait to figure out what was going to go on next, and all this political intrigue among the different vampire groups. It was really cool.
So I'm hoping I'm hoping they're able to keep to that and give us the Bloodline game that we deserve. The one without all of the bugs from the original.
I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with it.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the major ones I remember from the PC gaming show. To hit back on the Baldur's Gate 3 briefly, they talked a little bit more about it. Basically, all they said was, what's happening in Baldur's Gate is a bunch of mind flayers are showing up and starting to convert people. Normally, this takes normally the conversion, evolution, changing process takes about a week to 10 days. However, as evidenced in the trailer, is taking place in a matter of minutes. So something really fucked up is going on, and that this is how they're going to grow their army. Because mind flayers, by and large, D&D don't show up above the surface. They always stay underground, where they have more control over their surroundings. They don't come above surface unless there's a very good reason.
Well, one thing I'll say for multiple D&D settings, almost all the official D&D settings that use mind flayers always talk about how the mind flayers had a massive war with the surface. And this would happen a couple times. They'd be beaten down. They'd go underground for thousands of years. And it seems like that's what we're going to see. Is we're finally going to see a mind flayer invasion, like they've talked about in the games for years.
Yeah, it's possible. It's also established in D&D lore that at one point in time, the mind flayers actually were on the surface, and they were the dominant society ruling race.
Absolutely.
But they were eventually overthrown by the Gith, which became their own.
Which were their own slave race they made. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was all sorts of problematic, and now you have the Gith Yankee and the Gith Zere that hunt down the mind flayers for what they did to their ancestors.
Yeah. And whether this is an actual mind flayer incursion, invasion, assault on the surface, no one's entirely certain. But based on the fact that there was a bunch of mind flayers flying in the sky with a Cthulhu-looking thing, cephalopod or whatever the name of the creature is, guiding them, or whatever. It looks like that's what it's going to be. So, yeah, prepare to get your brains eaten a lot.
Pretty much.
Nom nom nom.
For a smaller game that I saw at the PC Indie show, we have Chris Tales, which seems to be as we've seen many of, a time-themed indie-style game with a character who interacts with the past, present, and future of a single place to solve puzzles and progress in an RPG-style game. It looked gorgeous.
It did.
In some ways, it kind of reminded me of Octopath Traveler, which is a good thing. I don't care how dumb you think the name is. That was an excellent game. So,
Ronny, I also knew that they announced at the PC Gaming Show an update for Terraria.
Yeah, I saw that.
Now we have a massive update coming there.
We also had Planet Zoo show up, which was basically just running your own zoo simulator.
Because why not?
Yeah, because why not?
Hey, Sim theme park worked. Why not?
Absolutely. Somebody messaged me that the game of the year as a joke. The game of the year, Conan Chop Chop.
Oh yeah. There's a Conan clone of They Are Billions coming out. That was got announced during this.
My free trade axe is ready.
Get that act. And I was taking a look at Conan Chop Chop because I'm like, why? Why? But apparently, this is a joke that is being taken to its next logical extreme.
Which is actually making it, not just leaving it as a joke.
Yeah.
Well, again, like the thing with the PC gaming show, from what I remember, was that they had a bunch of games shown, and a lot of it was interesting in some fashion, and a lot of them were coming out 2019 too.
Yeah, it's I got the sense that, you know, a lot of these games were either coming out soon or like they varied between soon and very soon. Like, I didn't get the impression for most of these that these were games that were going to be, 5 years away, which is good.
We had that problem a few years ago, so
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's very refreshing that it's like, okay, I just have to wait a month to a year, rather than this is in development. It will come out sometime in the future at some point.
Maybe,
if you're lucky.
Maybe. Yeah, if you're absolutely lucky. But
yeah, I will play the heck out of Conan Chop Chop, by the way, going back.
I'm sure, that it looks like it has just the right amount of whimsy.
It looks like it has that sort of, like, defend your castle, if anybody remembers that sort of feel, where it's just stick figures running around doing things.
If you haven't played They Are Billions, I can describe what the gameplay is going to be. You have a small base or a thing you got to set up. There's a bunch of zombies on the world map. You have to build a wall and kill zombies as they try and take over what's left of society for you, and do that. It becomes this increasingly large base building / zombie horde killing thing, where it becomes literally waves and waves and millions and billions of zombies trying to take over your little corner of civilization.
At first,
that also sounds like Defend Your Castle.
at first, I thought it was going to be something along the lines of what's the game for the Switch? Overcooked?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be something like that initially, and then, after my friend was telling me it's a joke, game of the year right here, and like, this looks so silly, but it has the potential to be so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Anyone have anything else to add for what we've discussed so far, or can we have a nice break and go into the second half?
I think the main thing is that up to this point in time of E3, we've been jumping around a little bit, but by this point in time, people were kind of meh about E3 by and large. Like, there was a couple good games that came out and got shown, but that was about it. Other than Keanu Reeves, like, that was other than Keanu Reeves, an excitable game dev woman. Like, that's all that's been out of E3 so far to this point.
I think people were excited. I just don't think there wasn't any bombs dropped that really just rocked everything. It was more just like, if you're a fan of something particular, if there was an announcement for whatever your game is, that's your favorite, then you were excited. Either that, or there was actually some new IPs that I think were like, okay, cool, we're seeing some new stuff and we're drawing interest on that. So I think it was a pretty standard E3, but I guess we'll talk about it more afterward.
Yep, because on the second half, we've got Ubisoft and Devolver Digital. We have Square Enix.
Squeak.
And Shanna perks right up. And then we have Nintendo and indie games to talk about. So that we've got a loaded second half. But in the meantime, you guys will have some music. We will cut out And with that, you are listening to our E3 2019 recap here on Downloadable Content. We'll be back